I do also want to show this segment from Russian state TV about punishing Ukrainians after Russia wins. This was talked about in the Julia David piece, and I wanted to show it because it's pretty wild.
На новых территориях России нужно преодолевать последствия националистической политики.
Of Kiev's nationalist policies on the new Russian territories. It warped the conscience of adults and the young. Putin said so in his meeting with kids. The Ukrainian government was imposing Russophobia, starting in school. Putin also spoke of how he was put into a corner. Putin put himself into a corner. Imagine that. He says it's one of his warmest childhood memories. By the way, he said they start to cultivate the hatred towards Russians and Russia in school. Not in school, but in nurseries and kindergartens. That is a lot more precise and true. I am very concerned that Ukraine, after we defeat it militarily, within the boundaries planned by the Supreme Commander, we won't go into specifics about these boundaries. We will force them to sign the necessary political documents. Then we will put Ukraine's political class into a corner. Then we might go, it's a brotherly nation, they were mistaken, no big deal that they cultivated hatred in kids, that was long ago. And after a while, we will forgive them. Are you proposing for us to lynch them? Lynching is an American method. I'll talk about America as well. We should thoroughly flog them the Russian way. That's the way it was always done. Most importantly, check their entire political class. Political circles of the so-called Ukraine should be completely removed from power. Completely, top to bottom, including the journalistic circles and businesses. But this is a separate topic. Okay, so to be clear, he first proposes not only military domination of Ukraine, but whatever territory is taken over. He doesn't specify which, so he's just leaving up what conquests the government engages into the government. He says that whatever land is taken over, the political elite must be smashed and purged. And he fears that the government might come to an agreement with it where they can get along and shake hands and allow them to exist to some extent. He's like, no, that cannot happen. That the political elite must be purged, completely eliminated, and flogged. He said flogged. That was his word. And he didn't just say it for the political elite. So trying to eliminate the political independence of Ukraine, destroy the political elite of Ukrainian society. In its political independence, but to also go after its journalistic society, go after its journalists, go after its journalistic independence, go after its civic society. So what he's saying is that he's afraid that whatever happens, whether Russia conquers all of Ukraine or Russia takes half of Ukraine, whatever it is, that afterwards that the occupation won't be that brutal. And that they won't properly find everyone that needs to be found and purge them, flog them, and eliminate them. Journalists, politicians, etc.
Burns is an
immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man. Love the shirt and please don't let Russia win. Well, I'll tell them to stop. I will tell those Russians that Desoluk won in chat, who just gave me $5, but $2.5 by extension, that he said to them that they should fuck off. Okay, Desolak said fuck off to Russia. I'll let them know. I'll tell them it's time to stop. Now let's move on. I just wanted to show that because I thought that was wild. But I want to show you what this guy said later about Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. The America Secretary of Defense. Look at this.
до истерики, пусть каждый, кто ложится спать, думает, что ночью ему перережут.
Trout_dealer got a tier 2 subscription.
Hey,
I'm so angry
on side
and
chat.
depressed.
Oh.
Why are Republicans such babies? I haven't felt this down since the start of the full-scale invasion.
Well, it's a I mean, I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think it's a problem of the Republicans have such a small majority, and after so many recall votes and with such an inexperienced guy at the helm, it's going to be very hard for him to reel in any the far right people or the fringe who are against Ukraine aid no matter what, to support Ukraine aid, or not to even support Ukraine aid, but for them to allow him to bring it to a vote. That's the thing. Is it the problem what's going on right now isn't that, oh, these are just, the people against Ukraine aid being heard for the first time. No. If they were to take Ukraine aid alone and have it on its own principles outside of this fucking dick measuring contest that's going on right now, this grandstanding, just have a standalone vote. The majority in the House would support it. The majority in the Senate would support it. The presidency supports it, and the majority of the American people supports it. It's a problem of he doesn't want to put Mike Johnson into another recall vote. And since they have so few votes in order to hold the House majority, one less now, because of George Santos, he can't really afford to lose more than 5 votes. And so if they make some crazy ass demands of Ukraine aid, he has to give them something. And Mike Johnson has never been particularly strong on Ukraine aid either. I said this at the start when he was made House Speaker. I expressed a lot of concern because his voting record was that at the start of the war, he voted for one package. He said, we can approve some, weapon sales, and then that was that. Everything past that, he voted against.
$5. We need media education in primary schools. Shockingly large number of educated Westerners fall for Ruski scat media. I'm giving $5 for seed.
You're right, though. I see a lot of people falling for Russian disinformation. They learned a lot of stuff from Syria. I'm seeing a lot of the stuff from Syria repeated. Now, this isn't even just the people taking the footage from Syria and pretending it's from Gaza that I see Jackson Hinkle, Censored Man, and all sorts of different accounts on Twitter doing all the time, but also the same tactics. I see the same tactics being used. They've gotten really good at it, man. They've gotten really, really good at it. I think one of their, and I talk about it all the time, but I think it's a great example. It's just, they throw so much shit at the wall, and it's not good shit, but they throw so much shit, and there's so much of it, and people get a lot of their news from social media, and that's where the stuff is mostly proliferated. This is where the stuff is mostly spread. And so many news broadcasters, so many commentators get their news from social media, whether they admit to it or not. Tucker Carlson, I think, undoubtedly is one of those people. And that's how I assume he got that story where he said for every one Russian soldier that dies, 7 Ukrainian soldier dies, which he played on his network, on his show, twice on the most popular name in news, the most popular show in news broadcasting in the United States on cable television. He could have, there's no way that somebody, unless he was purposefully going out of his way to lie about this, knowing it was a lie, which I don't think is entirely impossible. I think what's much more likely is that he wanted it to be true, so he accepted it and said it without filtering it. And then once he found out he was wrong, he just didn't give a fuck. Either way, though, the problem with the Russians is just that there's just so much. There's just so much misinformation spread. It's not that I need to sit down and it's impossible to figure out how it's bullshit. It's just by the time you figured out it was bullshit, they've already released 3 or 4 or 5 other things that are also bullshit. Anyway, here's him saying this weird thing about our Secretary of Defense. Look at this.
Так украинцев.
Вот тоже я когда-то говорил в начале операции, что готовьтесь, что бандеровское украинское подполье в России еще до того, как вот массово уже в результате военных действий пошли, оно активизируется и будет очень активным. Мне говорят, нет, братский народ, те, кто у нас здесь живет, да они, да как же может быть так? Вот сейчас мы это все видим. Но, значит, это действительно инструмент. Это нацизм, это расизм, это нечто зоологическое, ненависть ко всем остальным. Теперь у них, значит, это кто у них, министр обороны, я уже, который негр.
Lloyd Austin.
А?
Lloyd Austin.
Да.
Если вы про Милли, то он в отставке, поэтому на него, собственно,
Вот
вешают
тот,
всех собак.
Нет, собак-то...
А который сейчас главный, тот Остин.
Остин,
Темнокожий мужчина.
Да, темнокожий, по-вашему. Негр, нормальное
негр,
название.
как хотите.
Вот. Хижина дядя Тома, там все...
Trashinancer has donated $5. Speaking of misinformation, here's $5 for those feet pics you gave me.
Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. If you need more feed pics, email me at DylanBurnsTVFeedPics@gmail.com. Look, he was going out of his way to say the N-word as much as possible. And I'm sorry, he said it so many times over and over and over again. I believe that. I believe that. My God, man, he really wanted to say it too. Like, if he said it like once, I'd be like, yeah, I don't like it. But it was again. Let's listen to that again. Let's read that interaction again.
Который нечто зоологическое, ненависть ко всем остальным. Теперь у них, значит,
who is their defense minister?
Министр обороны, я уже, который негр.
Lloyd Austin.
А?
Lloyd Austin.
Да.
Если вы про Милли, то он в отставке, поэтому на него, собственно,
Вот
вешают всех собак.
Нет, собак-то...
А который сейчас главный, тот Остин.
Остин,
темнокожий мужчина.
Да, темнокожий, по-вашему. Негр, нормальное
негр,
название.
как хотите.
Вот. Хижина дядя
The way it
Тома,
was
там
described in
всё
Uncle
называлось,
Tom's
запрещённое,
cabin,
как говорят.
they say it's banned.
Я...
This got me into thinking, in Soviet times, here in the great Soviet Union, why the heck did we fight for the rights of black people?
Права негров в Америке.
In America,
Зачем нам такие
why did we need these rights
которых получили
that led to the emergence of these Russia haters? Why?
поменьше...
We should fight a lot less for the rights of others and more for our own rights.
Права.
Okay, so that is a crazy conclusion. Wow. What an interesting conclusion from Russian state TV commentator. Man, it looks like the current Secretary of Defense in the United States is a black man. I guess it was a mistake for the Soviet Union to fight for the rights of black people. Number one, the Soviet Union and the current Russian government are two totally different things. I don't know why their values are different. The communism, totally different things. That's the first thing. The second thing is much of it during the Soviet period was very cynical. Okay. Another thing, what a bizarre reaction. Is this how it works? Where if there's ever a single Russian, black person in America that's like, I don't like Russia that much. It's just like at a whim, like this one black person has ruined it for the rest of you. No more civil rights. No more civil rights for you, black person. You didn't like Russia. You saw us dumping all those Ukrainians to a mass grave and said, ooh, that's not chill, man. How dare you?
C. Webster74 has donated $10. Hope you are having a good time at home and are able to catch up with your family and friends. Do you have a to-do list for your winter hibernation?
A to-do list? Not really a to-do list. I have a bunch of work things that I gotta get done. I guess I should make a list of fun things I should do while I'm here for winter and the holidays. I don't know, though. I don't have any plans. Well, I have some plans, but not much. How much vodka do you think you get for ranting on RT? I don't know. It's an old Russian propaganda trope to talk about black Americans. The Russians are, of course, racist on top of everything else. Well, of course, Russia has a racism problem. Ah, man. Anyway, that's enough of that. That's enough of Russian state TV. Oh boy, we get to talk about this Tucker Carlson thing now. Staying on Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. I don't know if you saw this tweet from Tucker Carlson. The Biden administration is openly threatening. Okay, one moment.
Darono has donated $5.
5 whole buggerinos.
What happened to the Internet Research Agency after Prigozhin's fall from grace?
I believe it's in somebody else's care now. I know Wagner is now ran by Prigozhin's son. Yes, I know that's crazy. Yes, it's true. But I don't know about the Internet Research Agency. I don't know who runs it now. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. Back to this. Tucker Carlson tweet. The Biden administration is openly threatening Americans over Ukraine. In a classified briefing in the White House yesterday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin informed members that if they don't appropriate more money for Zelensky, we'll send your uncles, cousins, and sons to fight Russia. Pay the oligarchs or we'll kill your kids. Oh my God. I can't believe Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin went out on a whim like that and said that if you don't send Zelensky more money for cocaine, we're going to kill your family. I can't believe he said that. And of course, the investigative squad was on the scene from Elon Musk. He really said this. He really did. Confirmed. Well, that's all the proof I need. I mean, that the evidence is overwhelming. How can you object to this? This is overwhelming evidence. He just reiterated it. I mean, that I don't know what you could say to this. Of course, Vivek Ramaswamy, when persuasion doesn't work, they use threats next. Okay, so I don't want to impugn Tucker Carlson as a journalist, okay? You know, as a respected member of the media, of the brave men and women who hold our political elite to account. I don't want to call him a kook or a conspiracy theorist or a wackadoodle or a nut job or any of those things. I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is that what I assume actually happened in comparison to what Tucker Carlson is saying is happening. And as I've said before a million different times, Tucker Carlson has misreported on this war a lot. He's gotten a lot of things wrong, from him saying that, for example, the Novikova dam explosion was probably the Russians, or his statement that for every 1 Russian soldier that dies, 7 Ukrainian soldiers die. He has misreported this war in sometimes hilariously stupid ways. For example, that troop report was just like a badly photoshopped recreation that somebody made that he must have saw on Twitter or on social media, or somebody sent him in DMs. The original documents that showed the death rate was the Jack Textera leaks. He could have just looked at any of the confirmed website for the Jack Textera leaks and compared it to his fake Photoshop, and he would have seen that. But he didn't, because he doesn't have that much effort to put in. Or maybe he blames his staffers. I don't know. It was said twice on his show, though. Either way, I don't think he has, the highest journalistic reputation on these issues. And I did some digging, and what I assumed to be true ended up being true. Now, this is from the 5th. This is from 2 days ago. Austin warns Congress failing to pass Ukraine aid very likely leads to U.S. troops on the ground in Europe. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned Congress Tuesday that if lawmakers fail to pass more aid to Ukraine, very likely it will lead to U.S. troops on the ground in Europe defending NATO allies and other countries Russia may target next. If Vladimir Putin takes over Ukraine, he could get Moldova, Georgia, then maybe the Baltics. House Foreign Affairs Chairman Michael McCall told The Messenger after Biden administration military intelligence officials briefed House lawmakers on the need for Congress to approve more aid to war-torn Ukraine. And then the idea that we'll have to put troops on the ground in Secretary Austin's world was very likely, McCall, Republican from Texas, said. That's what we're trying to avoid. So what this says, and this is what I thought immediately when I read the tweet as well, what I suspected to be the case, is that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin probably said in the meeting something along the lines of, if Russia conquers Ukraine, if the Russians win in Ukraine, then the Russians will probably move on to a country like Moldova, which the Russians already have 1,500 troops illegally stationed in, where they have fomented corruption in for years, where they've tried to buy politicians to their side, have engaged in massive disinformation campaigns, and have tried to leverage their energy supply politically heavily. But putting that aside, like going down the list of countries, his point wasn't that if you don't send Ukraine aid, then I'm going to take your kid and I'm going to kill them, or I'm going to send them to Ukraine to die if we don't approve this aid package. His message is, if we don't act now, if we don't send Ukraine aid now, then this will snowball into a bigger issue when the Russians eventually slam into Moldova, or God forbid, Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, which the foundation for Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, if you believe his own words, from his speech that he made at the start of the invasion, him calling all of the post-Soviet states artificial creations of the Soviet Union. That includes Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. This could be a basis to invade those countries as well, especially since they have a large Russian-speaking minority, which the Russians are saying are oppressed. And doesn't that ring a bell? Point is, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense was not trying to say, look, if you send aid, don't send aid to Ukraine, I'm going to kill your child. What he was trying to get at is, if you don't deal with this crisis now, it could spiral into a bigger crisis later down the road that will then take more lives to deal with and possibly direct American involvement. But nah, man, I'm sure Tucker Carlson is being an honest, above board reporter with dignity and good values.